20 million people are waking up to go and vote in what has been described as the closest and the keenest election in U.S. history. Welcome to another exciting edition of Election 360 on TV3, your most authoritative election and politics program in the Global South. I am Martin Asiedu-Date, and today our focus will be entirely on the U.S. elections and what the last round of campaigns have looked like. We'll also find out from some reporters and our correspondents on what exactly the latter days have looked like in the build-up to today, the 5th of November 2024, when the U.S. will be deciding whether former President Donald Trump goes back to the Oval Office at the White House or Vice President Kamala Harris of the Democratic Party is likely to continue in the stead of the Democratic Party. Details of this and more in a moment. This is Election 360. Right, so thank you for staying with us. Let's delve into the details, and we start off our show today with the question on why this election far away in the United States is of importance to Ghanaians and Africa for that matter. My colleague Pakwesi Asare will take us through what exactly the key diplomatic, historic pleasantries we've had with the US are and how we intend to build upon that, plus put the relationship between the United States and Ghana in focus on the show today. So Pakwesi Asare has joined us. Let's go straight into the details and look at the historicity of Ghana and the United States of America. Pakwesi, thank you for joining us.
Good to be on your program,
to start
Martin.
with, I mean, we have a very sizable number of Americans living in Ghana,
right,
and vice versa. You inclusive, I mean, you've had a stint in the United States. So we just want to look at the diplomatic ties and the benefits thereof. Walk us through some of the key issues that concern both countries.
Well, first of all, Martin, I might say that this is a very big election. You know, America is a bulwark. I mean, they're the bastions of democracy. And it's said often in times past that when America coughs, the whole world catches cold. And so this elections between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, Vice President, means a lot to Africa. It has a lot of ramifications for the continent. And as you just rightly said, I'm going to start off by giving people a brief, understanding of what the diplomatic relations have been between Ghana and the United States. Now, the U.S. established diplomatic relations with Ghana in 1957. And, of course, thousands of Ghanaians have studied in the United States, and hundreds of American students continue to visit Ghana on exchange programs. In terms of security, we know the U.S. and Ghana have worked together on defense and law enforcement issues, including joint training exercises. Ghana is also a part of the State Partnership Program, which pairs a U.S. State's National Guard with the partner country's armed forces. Following from that, in terms of trade, which is also a major issue, we know that U.S. goods exports to Ghana in 2022 were $975 million. From 2021, we know that U.S. goods imports from Ghana total $2.8 billion in 2022. That was up by 61% from 2021 and up 850% from 2012. We also know that the United States' top exports to Ghana were cars, petroleum, gas, and refined petroleum. If you just go to the next slide, Ghana's top exports due to the United States were crude, petroleum, cocoa beans, and cocoa paste. And we also know that Ghana's top imports from the United States in 2023 were mineral fuels, oils, and distillation products, machinery, nuclear reactors, and boilers, plastics, and products of animal origin. So this is just a brief, you use the word historicity. Yeah. That's a big word, Yeah. Yeah. So it just gives you a bit of background in terms of the history of the United States and America. Now, the two candidates we're talking about here, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, depending on who wins the elections, their policies might be different. We look at trade, for instance. Now, Donald Trump, as you know, when he was president, dealt with countries on a bilateral level. I mean, he'll pick and choose who to deal with, you know. And we know today that China is the largest trading partner to Africa. I mean, they're investing massively in Africa. When Donald Trump was president, we saw that rift between China and the United States. He imposed a lot of sanctions on China, and that has implications also for the countries that deal with China, because I mean, China is not interested in who is practicing democracy or who is not. They are just coming to do business. And that's what they've been doing over the years. Now, America is coming in with Donald Trump as president, trying to make African countries or countries take a stance as to who to belong to. And that's where the difficulty comes in, you know, and it takes away from the autonomy of African countries, because it's a really difficult thing to want to choose between two superpowers, you know, and that's the challenge. For Kamala Harris, it almost seems as if with Kamala Harris, you're not going to have a lot more of those geopolitical tensions. I mean, she under Biden as president, you could see the efforts that America was making, you know, trying to, although it's late in the day, you know, but America is trying to gather itself, is engaging more with African countries, the green energy, we know, for instance, a lot of interest in there. But whoever wins elections, the issue about critical minerals is a major thing for America.
Absolutely.
And Africa has a lot of these critical minerals, and that's where they'll be focusing on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're also looking at building and strengthening the partnerships they have with many African countries. Not every African country is a friend to the U.S. Ghana is a very key partner to the United States. That is why when we are even about having elections, the Secretary of State to the current administration, Anthony Blinken, has given a caution, warning that anybody that tries to meddle in the current elections Ghana is about to have will be a visa ban will be imposed on that individual. Also, it was just this year that Kamala Harris thought it necessary to come to Ghana just as a way of building or intensifying the partnership.
And that's what I talked about earlier on. That with Kamala Harris, you're sure of that multilateral engagement. I mean, she intends to go around visiting countries where America has interest in. For Donald Trump, it's more bilateral, to target areas where, you know, it's a win-win. It's very transactional, very, very transactional. And that's Donald Trump for you. Okay.
So thank you very much, Pakwesi. So for many of you who just joined us on Election 360, we've just been trying to put into perspective why we deem it necessary to discuss the U.S. elections, because it has very clear implications on Ghana, whoever goes to the Oval Office. And just by concluding on the investment partnership between the U.S. and Ghana, the U.S. has invested an approximation of $1.3 billion US in Ghana, and that's the 2022 figure, which is a 10.1% decrease from 2021. So this figure is actually a 10% decline compared to what was invested in 2021. So it tells you that although investments have come down, there still is huge interest between both countries. And Pakwesi, who is with our business desk, has painted a picture for us, the relevance and the need, why it is important for us to keep very close eyes on what's happening in the US of A. Thank you, Pakwesi, for that. So still on Election 360, we indicated that we'll be touching base with a number of people who have some level of expertise to share with us on how the elections have gone so far. For now, though, let's tell you exactly what some of what the two leading candidates have been talking about. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have been making last-minute push to get voters to vote for them. Now, campaigning has closed, voting has begun, or voting actually started about 2 weeks ago, and today is the last day of voting in the U.S. Let's listen to their last-minute pitch, where we know, for instance, that Kamala Harris was in one of the key swing states of Pennsylvania, and she has been saying. Also, Donald Trump, he did his final big rally, and it was interesting, some of the things he put across. Here are some of the concerns they raised on their campaign platforms.
We will cut your taxes, end inflation, slash your prices, raise your wages, and bring thousands of factories back to America and back to Michigan. And a lot of it will be using my favorite word, tariff. And one of the things I'm going to do, I'll give you this as a little insight. I just announced it in Pittsburgh. I didn't think it's become a very big story already. So we're going to tell Mexico, you're killing tremendous numbers of our people by allowing China to send their fentanyl through your...
Our campaign has tapped into the ambitions, the aspirations, and the dreams of the American people. And we know it is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States. But we still got some work to do, because look, the race is not over, and we must finish strong. So listen, here's the thing about the hard work. We like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is joyful work. And make no mistake, we will win. We will win. We will win. We will win.
All right, so you had both candidates, and the last you just watched was that of Kamala Harris, who was in Pittsburgh asking people, look, we need to go out and vote. We need to win this. Will she win it, though? Let's engage Angela Forbes, who is with the Democrats Abroad Director of Strategic Initiatives. Thank you so much, Angela, for your time. What time is it where you are right now?
It's 12:13 here in Germany.
12:13.
Yes.
Right, very early in the morning. Right, thank you for waking up and staying with us and helping us understand what's happening. To start with, how has the Kamala campaign gone? We know that when she took over from Joe Biden, Biden's votes, the popularity as compared to that of Donald Trump was not as strong. But since Kamala took over the baton, she ran a very good race. What would you say her high points have been throughout the campaign period?
Yes, Kamala Harris has run an excellent campaign. I would say from the very beginning until now, I would say the Democratic National Convention was a high point. Her closing statement at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. had 75,000 people attend, which is a little bit of a record. But throughout the campaign, she's only gotten better. She's only gotten more people excited about voting for her. And I'm definitely proud to have voted for her already.
Right. What in your estimation is the reason why people have described this election as too close to call? We know in previous elections you could tell who is in a comfortable lead, but this time around, no poll, no expert has been able to stick their head out to say Kamala is winning or Donald is. Why is it so?
I would say because a lot of the polling is very inexact. You know, there's a lot of people that never get called for these polls. There are a lot of people like me who are, I've never been called for a poll, and I doubt I ever will, that are voting. And they're not considering the fact that American women are incredibly angry about having their rights taken away. And I don't think that's really included in the poll. Although there was polling recently in Iowa that said that Kamala was going to win Iowa. So this could be the surprise election that nobody could really poll accurately.
Right, and you mentioned the issue of American women. A number of the polls have suggested that it looks as though majority, about 55% of the women population in the U.S. have tilted to vote for Kamala, and it is stemming from the Roe versus Wade, case that the federal government, the Supreme Court touched on. Why is that such an important issue to American women? And Donald Trump has also shared a different perspective, but why is it such a topical subject and so important going into this election?
It's an important issue because women thought that their rights for their own bodily autonomy was secure. And once you start taking rights away from people, where does it stop? Also, the maternal mortality rate has increased dramatically in the United States because people aren't able to access what should be routine health care if you have a miscarriage or some other kind of problem with your pregnancy. And this is incredibly, for me as a woman, this is incredibly horrifying to know that if I go to the wrong state and I'm pregnant and I have a problem, that I could die. I feel for my daughters. I feel for my nieces. Also, I think that men don't like the idea that if their wife is pregnant, that she could also die because she can't get proper medical attention.
Right. Clearly, it's quite important to women. And maybe in wrapping up this conversation, one other key issue of contention is that of immigration. And I mean, Donald Trump has said it plain and clear that he is against the number of influx of illegal immigrants coming into the U.S. It looks as though the Democratic Party is a bit liberal when it comes to issues of immigration. How do you think Kamala can win the hearts of the immigrant population and then also, you know, the general world of those who are interested in going to the U.S.? How do you think this will play out in the latter part of the decision-making for those who are going to be voting?
Well, I think people have to realize that during the Trump administration, he said he was going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. He did not really build a wall. He built some sections of a wall. And immigration, illegal immigration, was higher during the Trump administration. During the Biden-Harris administration, immigration has gone down. And yes, we do have immigrants. We have people that are seeking asylum. We have people that are coming here for jobs that are coming through the proper channels. But what really needs to be done is that we need an overhaul of our immigration system, which the Republicans and Donald Trump decided that after the plan was negotiated, that they didn't want to do it. And that would have solved a lot of problems. They didn't want to do it because Trump wouldn't have had something to run on. So the majority of these problems could be resolved if we would just actually take action.
All right. Angela Forbes, pleasure talking to you. Wish you all the best, and also Kamala as well.
Thank you.
So we've been trying to pick the thoughts of what's happening in the U.S. right now, and you just heard from Angela Forbes, who is a Democrats Abroad Director of Strategic Initiatives, who is campaigning vigorously for Kamala. I mean, campaigning is over though, but then she is in the camp of Kamala, clearly stating out or reinstating some of her policies that she has been campaigning on. So it looks like it's a clear lead for either party to win. Nobody is leading in the polls from the current information we are picking, and based on the polls that we have seen so far, none of them is in a comfortable lead, like a phrase we use here in Ghanaian politics. But it looks as though, as things stand, many Americans are waking up. It's early hours in the country, and voting has commenced vigorously. What you're seeing on your screens right now are images of one of the polling centers where some people who have woken up early are able to go and vote. These are live images coming in from the United States of America here into your homes live on TV3. So it tells you how global we are when we say we are your election command center. And we'll also be speaking very shortly to Sani Abdulrahman, who is my colleague here at TV3, currently in the United States, who would also help us understand what exactly are the thoughts of many of the immigrants in the U.S., and then also how all of this is likely to play out, especially as we all await to see how the voting will go like. Right, joining us again on Zoom is, well, let's bring in someone from the Republican Party just to tell you that we are not one-sided. We also have been joined by mayoral candidate Ejike Okpa, who will be helping us understand what exactly the dynamics are for the Republican side of the U.S. elections. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us, sir, and we're happy to have you. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Right. So, have you voted already, if I may ask?
Oh yeah, I do early voting. I don't wait for the last day because it gets chaotic and the lines are usually long. So yes, I have voted.
Okay, great. So, I mean, I'm going to start from the thorny issue of immigration. I am pretty surprised that you have a number of people of color like yourself who are supporting Donald Trump. Here on the continent, I'm sure you have a Nigerian ties, but here on the continent, it's suddenly mixed. People say they support Trump irrespective of his immigration policies he's put out. As someone who is in the U.S. and clearly a Republican, what do you make of what do you make of Donald Trump's immigration policies he intends to roll out if he does get to the Oval Office?
Well, I support it. I came to America legally. I was denied visa 2 times in Nigeria. I got it the 3rd time. America is not saying don't come to America. America is saying come legally. Just like, when Ghanaians came to Nigeria, remember the phrase that came out of that, Ghana must go. With America should not have to put up with the irresponsibility of people from countries that say they have challenges. Come here legally and the opportunities are limitless. The only thing I cannot be as an American, as a naturalized citizen, is become president. But I can be anything. That's why I ran for mayor, the first Native African in the history of American immigrants coming here. I ran for mayor of Dallas in less than 8 years of becoming a citizen. I ran for Congress, and currently every president, every governor of Texas has always appointed me since 1995 when I became a citizen. So this thing about Trump not liking immigrants is falsehood. It's the Democrats' way of, again, using falsehood to make it look like it's a fact. We said, come to America legally. Nobody allows or loves illegal immigration. It's stressful. Trump said when he ran for the first time, nobody should have to die to come to America. Come legally, right. Make the effort. But again, me, just like my home is my country. If a family member of mine were to break into my home, I will kick them out. But if I say, come on as a guest, I know when you come in, then I will avail myself of what is available to them. And then they too will be comfortable. There are a lot of African immigrants in this country. You know why they are not participating in the American process? They are illegal. They come on a visit and then they start to stay. When you do that, you start to hide, you start to do jobs that are not very reflective of your capability, of your interest. Why would you want to waste your life that way because you're in America? Okay. Why would you want to do that?
And Mr. Okpa, still on that issue, he has gone round in his campaign. We know that he did his last campaign yesterday. What would you say Donald Trump's campaign has largely been like? Many say he was a bit more vitriolic and, this is in as much as the tight election, it has also been quite filled with anger and the language has been very negative. Do you get that sense from the camp of Donald Trump as well?
No, I don't get that sense. But again, it is what it is. Just like you said in your opening remarks, it's a global village. You can see what is going on instantly. People are subject to interpret things. There are people that are very observant. There are people who just look at things, but they don't observe it. So Trump antics does not perturb me. Again, I know him when he was in the White House. I was a guest of him for 3 times. And if he had won the 2nd term, I would have been made an ambassador. I would have been the first Native African who's a non-career diplomat that would have gotten that job. But again, it is what it is. And he knows he's a businessman. It's only American that has gone from the executive office of his business to the executive office of the president. And then that's a resentment because the typical politician in America is somebody who's gone through the process. You look at Obama, you look at Clinton, you look at Biden. What have they done or what did they do before they get there? They have been beneficiary of public support and all of a sudden, they are president. Trump is the one who has built things in America, created jobs, added, revenue to the community where he lives. So the resentment towards him is because of that. Again, he's not a perfect individual. I don't look for angels in politics. I look for angles. For me, it's who's going to get the job done.
Right.
And Trump had the job done when he was there for the first term.
Right, and you're confident he'll get the job done and win the election and go to the Oval Office? That's my last question. You're confident in
that? Again, like, I'm an invested Republican. I'm not just a person who votes. You know, I gave him money, Google my name, you say it. Yes, I would like to see him win. And when he does that, America is going to get back to what America ought to be.
Ejike Okpa, Excellency, thank you so much for your time this morning here in Ghana. Thank you for speaking to us. And clearly, we've just touched base with the two key parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, on what the last bit of the campaigns have been like, how the messaging has also gone, and also in wrapping up that, let's speak to my colleague Abdul Sani Rahman, who is in the US, has joined us for a quick wrap from the perspective of a journalist and also someone who's been living there for the last few years. Sani, thank you for joining us. I'm pretty sure you do not have voting rights, but tell us, how's the voting gone? It's early hours, though. How has the voting gone like?
Well, from this center that I'm reporting, voting started around 6 a.m. So far, I can count over 100 people that have cast yes, and very optimistic, very engaging. The community is coming out in their numbers to cast their ballots. Quite crucial for the community when I engage them, asking what their top priorities are in this election. They are talking about trade, they are talking about the economy, they are talking about healthcare, they are talking about security, about crime. A tall list that they have that they want the next president of the United States to address, Martin.
Right. And I mean, in your interactions with some Ghanaians and the larger immigrant population, especially those from the African extraction, what, in their perspective, are the key things they want either party to deal with, whether Donald Trump or Kamala? What, in their estimation, should be like? They should focus on this, they should focus on that.
Well, from the African community, immigration is top on the list. There is this sense of fear that when Donald Trump comes, families would be separated. Those without documentation will be sent back to their respective countries. There is also this sort of sense of misinformation going around. Those that are somehow partially regularized, even in the system, would not be spared of this promise that he has made to carry out the largest deportation in the history of the United States. So if you ask the African community, the Ghanaian community, who of course will have some relatives, some wives, some husbands, some children that have come into this country through the southern border, their concern has been immigration. And a chunk of them that are engaged will be voting for Kamala Harris, trying to ensure that their families are not taken back as they are in the process of regularizing themselves in the country. So for the African community, largely it has been immigration. For the Middle Eastern community, if you care to know, it has been the issue of security, the geopolitical tension that we've seen around the world. The situation in Gaza, the situation in Lebanon has dominated the conversation among the Asian and the Middle Eastern community here in America. And those are the reasons that they will be voting. Those are the issues that we'll be considering. And a chunk of them also would want to be voting for Kamala Harris. But on the other side, you also have some Ghanaian community who are also upbeat about Donald Trump. They are concerned about the economy. They are concerned about prices of groceries, which have skyrocketed. They are concerned about inflation, of course, which has become a global problem following the pandemic and the Russian-Ukraine war. So they will want Donald Trump, who has done pretty well with the economy in his first term between 2016 and 2020, to come back so that he may address these economic challenges, which they think he will better do than Kamala Harris.
All right, Sani Abdulrahman, thank you. We'll definitely be engaging you throughout the day. It's a long day for you and us here at TV3, your election command center, so we can keep a very close tab on the U.S. elections. Sani Abdulrahman joining us from the United States of America. So clearly, it was an issue that we started with, which is how important is this election? In fact, why is it even important to Ghanaians who becomes the president of the United States? And we're able able to establish that fact for you, looking at the trade volumes between both countries and the bilateral relations we have enjoyed in the last few years. We hit the streets to pick the thoughts of a number of Ghanaians, what they made of who becomes the next U.S. president. And here are their thoughts.
Because of their immigration policies. If Donald Trump comes to power, I don't think he will let everybody enter into his country. So I'm just concerned about the immigration policy.
I want Kamala Harrison to win. Yeah.
Why?
Because I just like it. I have no reason for that. I just like it.
So for me, I want Donald Trump to win. I just like him. And I feel when he comes into power, he will really help the economy.
I want Trump to win because, you know, Trump is against this homosexual, this, and the other woman, what's her name, Kamala, or what, you know, she's in support of that. And I'm a Muslim, and, you know, even Christianity is against it. So I'm supporting Trump because his first term, you know, the economic was good, everything was perfect. So I mean, I want him to win. I wish him all the best.
Kamala Harris should win because if Trump wins, you know, like he's against blacks and Muslims and all that, so like he would tend to like prevent him from coming to the US and I think Elon Musk is also like trying to like liaise with Trump to go through.
All right, so you heard the thoughts of probably your relatives who are also here in Ghana with us, talking to us about what they make of the U.S. elections and who they hope wins and what that will, in the long term, inure towards whether good or bad. Right, so clearly they've shared their thoughts, so we'll be happy to hear your thoughts as well. In the comment section. Because this show is because he has studied on-ground experience. Very soon, we'll also be joined by a special guest who has vast knowledge and experience of what international relations and governance have been like. He'll be part of this larger conversation as we look at the U.S. elections. But Alfred, walk us through what exactly the key differences are when it comes to the U.S. elections. I mean, we know Ghana, ours is especially parliamentary, first past the post. Whoever wins, if even by one, you win. But the U.S. elections, the dynamics are different. What's it like?
And very much so. And there's a lot at play with this election. And you'll think a number of things, very crucial indeed. We're going into the United States going into this election with a first female who hopefully has the high chance of becoming the first female president of the United States. And then also with a man who is a former president and seeking a re-election. This is the first time. So there's a lot of historic issues at play with this election. If Kamala Harris becomes president, the first female president of the most powerful nation on the planet Earth, and her husband is going to be the first gentleman. You know, and then you have Donald Trump coming in as the first former president who, if he wins, will become the first former president who has sought a comeback and won an election as well. Yeah. And you have that similarity in Ghana too, you know, but if you look at John Mahama and even Professor Jinano Poko Ajiman as well, if he becomes president, his running mate becomes the first female vice president. You can draw those similarities and those parallel lines at play. But then again, if you look at the voting system, as you earlier indicated, over time there's been that issue of voter turnout, but in 2020 there was an increase, an appreciable showing of the eligible voters who came out to vote, over 160 million of them. In fact, there are 344 million and over eligible voters in this election, going into this election as we're having it now. As of yesterday, over 76.4 million people had already voted, with the early voting and then also the mail voting. You realize that here in Ghana we have early voting, but that's limited to just you know, you and I, journalists, security services, and those people will be playing one role or the other on election day. But in the United States, the early voting is not limited to essential service providers as well. As you just heard, AGK, the Honorable AGK, the one we just spoke to, he's already cast his ballot. You would have the mail system as well.
And clearly it's also because of their numbers, because you don't expect over
344 million people turning up
it's
on
going
election
to be
day period. I mean, but with the mail voting, look, you don't want to talk about that in Ghana, especially on issues of transparency and so on. If you want to go and cast your ballot and you just put it in your mail and leave, who's going to snatch it? Anyway, but the Electoral College system is one that is pretty interesting, Martin. And as you indicated, we are strictly popular voting, where people turn up, we count what the ballot or the vote on election day, parliamentary, presidential, and then those who have the highest votes. That's why we have the 50+1 rule, that if you are able to get 50+1 as a presidential candidate, you are also pronounced as president of the Republic of Ghana. Well, that's not a strict case in the United States. You can win the popular votes, but if you lose the Electoral College, you would also lose the presidential race. And that's why we see that, for instance, based on the breakdown, 538 electors are selected by the various states with a certain commitment and a pledge for them to vote a particular way. And then based on this electors, 538 of them, they're distributed across the United States. The most states that have the winner-takes-all system, in fact, have a lot of their electors voting in a particular way. That's why you see a lot of the swing states being the major focus of the candidates going into the dying embers of the campaign period. Wisconsin, where I was privileged to have been, can get to see the sponsorship of the United States government under the Mandela Washington Fellowship. It's a swing state. Madison is a college town. Milwaukee is a heavy, politically oriented campaign ground. You see a lot of the candidates, in fact, Trump and Kamala Harris spent quite some time in Milwaukee, because that's been proven to be one of the areas to watch going into any election in the United States as well. And you have candidates having to win at least 270 of the 538 to guarantee victory in this election.
Right, and so that's when you're talking about the Electoral College, and the fact that you have majority supporting you or voting for you does not mean you're going to win. And the same thing happened when Hillary Clinton was also trying to win. Everybody, almost everybody, including pollsters, said that Hillary was going to win. But then it turned out, after the Electoral College votes were counted, the situation was totally different.
And that's what we see here. And in fact, in 2016, it played out the same way. And I'm just going to go back in there, because when Hillary, based on the popular votes count, 48.5, look, there was a lot of joy amongst her supporters, only then for us to see something else play out as well. But look, this election is close to call, and one that even pollsters have put not less than 1 percentage point difference as to who's going to win or lose. So you asked the question about why this is tight, a close race, and we've seen those factors play out going into this election, because Donald Trump is not new. He's a candidate that people know. He lost the 2020 elections for a number of reasons. He believes that he could have won. But then again, the economy is one of 3 major issues going into this election: the economy, immigration, abortion. And a number of the United States citizens, if you speak to the business community, they gravitate towards him because he's coming in with that business acumen, a business background, and in fact he's been against the establishment for quite a while now. So Washington itself has its own position about Donald Trump. But then again, if you look at how the dollar performed during his period as presidency, you would understand why the business community is gravitating towards him that much.
All right, so that's Alfredo Kanse joining us. So let's also introduce our guest now, who will be part of this bigger conversation of the entire U.S. and their elections. And we here at your Election Command Center are also very keen in following the development as it unfolds. We have Professor Enoch Opoku-Entry, who is a governance expert. He's also a Ghanaian and a U.S. citizen, and leads the Ghanaian community in Wisconsin and Ohio. Thank you so much. I mean, we couldn't have gotten a better person to join us for this conversation.
I am thrilled to be here.
Yeah, good morning to you as well. First of all, I'm sure, having been home, you've interacted with a number of Ghanaians, you know, and what sense do you get from them about the elections?
I think that this is quite historic for us to be almost having a woman as the first president of America, the greatest nation on earth. The issue is that her color has been a contentious one, whether she's black or an Indian, but I don't think that matters now. I think she's really done a good job within the short time frame that Joe Biden handed over to her and the way she's been doing well in the polls. This morning I was looking at CNN polls, and CNN polls really work well because the pollsters do a great job. The Kamala Harris supporter was saying that, you know, some people are not sampled, but in academia, you cannot sample everybody. You can't talk to every voter. Right. So what we do is that we sample. And anytime you sample, that's what we call the sampling error. So when CNN did the sampling, they found that Kamala, based on popular votes, is leading by 51%. And then Trump will be getting 47%. But anytime you sample, because there's a sample error, we do it plus or minus 3. So Kamala can get 54%, which is 51 plus 3, or she can get 48%, which is 48 plus 3 to be 51. In the same way, Trump with 47 can get 44, which is minus 3, or he can get 50%, which is plus 3. Plus 3, okay. So I first said something that I want to add to it. In 1884, there was Grover Cleveland, who has been the first president in America to come back again and win.
Right.
So that means that Trump will be second if he wins these elections. Right. But Kamala is also leading Trump in adverts. Right. You know, by $3 million, $300 million. Wow. That means that she spent a lot, you know, in the media. Then the issue is the 66, probably around 70% voter turnout. If people don't turn out, especially the youth don't turn out, then Trump can win. Because when it comes to elections all over the world, you have the older population going to vote. I've voted in America many times where we go, you see, most of the older population, they don't do the mail voting, or they don't do the email voting. I did email voting. So you command the email, and then they will send your voting number to you, and then you vote, and then you send it to the polling centers. Now, those who mail in, it comes to your mailbox. You also check those you want to vote for, and then it goes back. Then we have those who want to be present to vote. Most of the old folks like it that with the traditional way, old-fashioned. You go, make sure that your it counts, you take, and then the scanner, you scan it through, you know that, yes, it's going to be counted for you. But the good news is that those who go face-to-face are counted first.
Before they mail in.
So that those, we give privilege to those who go in first.
Right.
Now, talking about the electoral votes, during the process of selecting individuals for any political party, the same thing happens, the caucus. So the Iowa caucus will say that we give all our votes to this candidate. Right. And then but Iowa has got only 3 electoral college. That is why they are all centered at the swing states. Okay. So Wisconsin, that he was at Madison, that I've stayed there for a long time, Wisconsin has got 11 electoral college votes. Okay. And you need it. The last elections, Trump was there in 2020 7 times, and yet he lost. Joe Biden wasn't there many times because Wisconsin is all white. In fact, the minority in Wisconsin are Chinese mock. Chinese mock, not blacks.
And the red Indians.
Yes, and the red Indians. So you don't have blacks in that population, in that Wisconsin state. It's all white. That I was lecturing there as a professor in leadership. So you can tell that if you win Wisconsin, which is a top-out state, Pennsylvania, which is also a toss-up, which we call the purple state, and then Michigan, then you know that you are getting there because we have the red states. The red state, you win.
Whether you like it or not, they vote for.
And then we have the blue state that is already there for Democrats.
It's like Ashanti region and Volta.
Yes. So they don't campaign much there in your stronghold because you have the votes. But then they go to the swing states where you can convince them because it's the swings that makes you reach the magic number of 270.
Right. And would you agree? Would you agree that had Biden stepped down much earlier, it would have been a clear win for Kamala? You think if she had started her campaign much earlier than she did, it would have been, the story would have been different, where we would have said today that her win margin or the percentage of leading the polls would have been much higher?
I think that, when I was in Ohio and a Ghana Association president, I was with the Center for Progressive Leadership by Democrats, and I nearly stood for mayor. That time our mayor was Jerry Springler. Was our mayor in Cincinnati. Right. And that time I was about to contest. But then we have this LGBT issue that came out, and that is why I dropped out of the race.
Right.
So Joe Biden has been somebody who has really served all his life, over 50 years in public life. He lost his wife, he lost his children, everything he lost in serving his nation. And he reminds me of the first president of America, George Washington, who said that, ladies and gentlemen, I've grown gray and my eyes always blind, almost blind, in serving my country. So Trump lived, I'm talking about Joe Biden, from Delaware, where he was less than 30 years before he became a senator, served all his life. And he's so selfless that when Obama won and then we had a financial crisis, Joe Biden was the one selected to bring bipartisan agreement between the two political parties. So Joe has been somebody who's a unifier. And he served all his life. But age caught up with him. Yeah. And even though he wanted to drop out, the wife said, you can do it, Joe. You can do it, Joe. So remember when he won the last election in 2020, he had to walk to the stage and run for people to know that he's not that old.
That's a reminder. That's a
reminder for issue, right?
Absolutely.
People will ask you
similarities to run, to show, because it's all about showism. Right. Politics now is about showing to the people. But I think that Kamala, like I began saying, has done really well within the short time frame that she's really made a face out there, because Trump tied her to all the policies of Joe Biden. And now the biggest issue is gun control, security. When I was there, the National Rifle Association lobbied a lot. And the National Rifle Association said that, we have kids, everybody in America have guns. It's a country of guns. And not only do you have guns in your hall, you have some in your bedroom, and when you carry your grass, you also have some there, just in case somebody intrudes on your land. You see? So now students naively will pick parents' guns and then take it to school, high school students, and they will start shooting. So the issue is that let's have some gun controls. We need some background checks. If you are perching or staying with your parents, you don't have access to guns.
Right.
But then the National Rifle Association said that why not all professors also have guns? And imagine me teaching in a classroom and then, tucked here is a gun. What kind of gangster professor will I be?
See? I like the way you put it, gangster professor. But we definitely will be wrapping up this conversation shortly. We've also engaged a number of people, regular Americans and people on the streets of the U.S. to find out what they make of the election. So let's pick their thoughts briefly. Then we'll come and wrap up the conversation with Prof in the studio.
For us, I'm not saying it's going to be a change overnight, but I'm saying it's a step in the right direction. Obviously, as a woman, that was a huge priority for me, that our rights were protected. And so this election to me means a difference between women having, protected rights over our reproductive system to not having those rights. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm hopeful. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So you tell me your name and why you're here.
My name is Allison Paul. I'm here because I'm making sure people know about the New York Equal Rights Amendment to protect us here in this state, preserve the right to abortion, and protect us from other forms of discrimination that we see sweeping across this nation.
It's interesting how people can freely say, I vote for NDC or NPP in the U.S., but they can't do that in Ghana.
And in fact,
Prof
that's
is
why
with us. Let's
they would also say the polls, raise questions about the polls, because, here in Ghana, if you coming out to say you would vote for the NPP on the NDC could attract some vilification and insult.
That is the immaturity with our democracy.
So our democracy is so young. We'll get out there. Some of us who have seen bigger democracies, how can you say this professor is a Democrat professor or this professor is a Republican professor? It doesn't make sense because he earned his degree before even the political party, and the political party doesn't speak through anybody. So we'll get there, but I think it works for these kind of politics, immature politics, where people tag others with political parties and then use it against them. But you see, the issues there is pro-life, pro-choice, and when people talk about abortions, it's not really that way. Political parties are two sides of persuasions. They all want to serve the country, but they have different philosophies. Now, Republicans are saying that if you get pregnant, either by accident or intentionally, and your life is at risk, don't abort the baby, let the baby come. Now, Democrats are saying that if I already have 4 kids, and I'm pregnant and my life is at risk, and I might lose my life and the life of the baby, and I still have already 3 kids, then I have the right to choose.
Right.
You know, to let that baby go to take care. So pro-choice.
Okay.
And that is the issue. But then also immigration is going to be one of the biggest issues here in these elections. Because New Yorkers are thinking that Mexicans are crossing over. If you go to Texas, the same issues. And then they came illegally and they're coming to take their jobs when Americans are working. So well, it is going to be boiled down to these issues.
It would be great to see how all of these thorny subjects are translated into the votes at the end of the day. You've been hearing Professor Enoch Opoku-Antwi, a governance expert who's lived in the US and here in Ghana, is Ghanaian, and has also stayed there, done several things in line with governance and leadership. So here at your Election Command Center, we would keep very close tabs on developments in the US. In subsequent bulletins and shows, we'll get to know how the elections is shaping up. I am Martin Esiedudate. I've been here with Alfredo Kansei. Have a good day. Hasta la vista.